Namaste, everybody. Namaste. And we are officially still here. And as long as we can say that, we're okay. We have options. And this option is to chant. Pranavam Pavanakuma Kalabana Pavaka Gyanagan Jasuharadaga Basain Ram Sarachakadha Atulita Baladhama Himmashala Badeha Tanurjavana Krishna Jnaninam Graganyam Sakala Guna Nidhana Vanaranam Adhishan Raghupati Priya Bhaktam Atajatam Namam Urshpadi Krutavardishan Mashaki Kritarakshasam Ramayana Mahamallaratnam Vande Nilatmajam Anjananandaram Viram Janaki Shokanashanam Kapishamakshahantar Vande Lanka Bhayankaram Langa Sindho Salilam Salilam Yashokavahi Janakatma Jaya Adayatane Dadahalanka Amamitam Pranjali Ranjanayam Manojavam Marutatulya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtam Atatmajam Vanarutamukyam Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Rapadhe Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadhe Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadhe Anjaneya Matipatalan Kanchanadri Kamaniya Vigraham Parijata Taramudavasanam Bhavayami Pavamananandanam Yatra Yatra Raghunatha Kirtana Tatra Tatra Kritamastakhanjali Vashpavari Paripurna Lochanam Martinamat Rakshasantakam Bolo Bajranga Bali Hanuman ki jai. Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. 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 Shri Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram. Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Jai Sita Ram. Sitaram, 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 yes, Sitaram. Sitaram, 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 yes, Sitaram. Sitaram, 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 yes, Sitaram. Sitaram, 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 yes, Sitaram. 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 Sitaram, yes, Sitaram, Sitaram, yes, Sitaram. Sitaram, 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 yes, Sitaram. Sitaram, 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 yes, Sitaram. Sitaram. Sitaram, 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 yes, Sitaram. Sitaram, 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 yes, Sitaram. Sitaram, 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 yes, Sitaram. Sitaram, 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 Sitaram. Sitaram, 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 Sitaram. Oh, you hear that thunder? I don't know if you can hear it. Big time thunder. Balarupa Hanuman. Hanumate Namaha. Om Ham Hanumate Namaha. Om Ham Hanumate. Om Ham Hanumate. Om Ham Hanumate. Hanumate Namaha. Om Ham Hanumate Namaha. Om Hanumate. Om Ham Hanumate. Om Ham Hanumate. Om Om Hanumate, Om Hanumate, Hanumate, Namaha. Om Hanumate. Om Ham Hanumate. Om Ham Hanumate. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hey Ma Durga, hey Ma Durga, hey Ma Durga, hey Ma Durga. Hey Ma Durga, hey Ma Durga, hey Ma Durga, hey Ma Durga. Chandikaya, Om Namah 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 Chandikaya. Jayanti Mangala Kali Bhadrakali Kapalini Durga Kshama Shivadatri Swaha Swadha Namostute Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute Siddhi Buddhi Pradede Bhukti Mukti Pradayani Mantramurte Mahadevi Mahalakshmi Namostute Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute Sarvabadha Vinirmukto Dhanadhanya Siddhanato Manusyo Matprasadeno Bhavishyati Sanshara Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute Om Narayani Om Narayani Om Narayani Om Om Narayani Om Narayani Om Narayani Om Narayani Om Narayani Om Narayani Om Om Narayani Om Narayani Om Narayani Om Om Shri Matre Namah Om Shri Matre Namah Jambe Gari Jai Shama Gari Om Shri Matre Namah Om Shri Matre Namah Om Shri Matre Namah Jambe Gari Jai Shama Gari Om Shri Matre Namah Jai Jagarambe, Jai Jagarambe, Ema Durga, Ema Durga, 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 Jai Jagarambe, Jai Jagarambe, Ema Durga. Okay. Announcements. Next Wednesday. Is it next Wednesday? Oh my goodness. Okay. Next Wednesday, the Path of the Heart online course starts, sponsored by Embodied Philosophy, 4-part series, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. A small group on Zoom meeting, and it's possible we'll be able to have direct questions and answers, depending on how it works out. Meaning I'll be able to see you and you'll be able to see me and we can talk, maybe. Otherwise there'll still be a lot of questions and answers, or at least a lot of questions. Then, the next week, Thursday to Sunday, Devoted to Wisdom with KD and Bob Thurman. That's at Menla Institute, but virtual registration is available. It'll be available on Zoom. We're actually doing a semi-live weekend. That means I'll be mostly alive. Yes, okay. Reverb off. Live, voice up. Thank you. And but the in-person, we limited it to 75 people, so there'll be spacing and mask wearing and vaccinations and COVID tests and just about everything you can imagine to make sure that everybody is protected and safe. But if you're home alone, you're okay. And then this Saturday, in a few days, we have another Chai and Chat, 2 p.m. New York time. And we get to hang out together for a couple hours. That's enough for this week. There's a few more things you can look on krishnadas.com/support. Okay? Let's go. Okay, everybody asks, every week I get a question, were any of the blankets behind you worn by Maharaji? And yes, this blanket, this one right here, can you see it? Yeah. I'll get out of the way. This one here was Maharaji's blanket. And I was visiting a very dear friend of mine who lives in Europe, in Greece, a few years ago. And when I was getting ready to leave, I spent a few days there. she was with us in the old days with Maharaji, very great devotee of Maharaji's, named Draupadi. And as I was leaving, she took me into one of the rooms there, and she opened the closet, and there were 2 blankets of Maharaji. One is the famous blue raincoat blanket. The blue blanket, the blue plaid blanket that he wear in many of the pictures you can see around. And that also happens to be the one where he's wearing a maroon turtleneck that my mother brought to him that summer of 1972. So that blanket was there, and then also this blanket was there, and she gave it to me. And she said that this was the blanket that I gave to Maharaji in the spring of 72, early spring, 72 in Vrindavan, I think it was. And it's funny because I didn't remember this blanket. I thought it was a different one. But she knows because Maharaji gave it to her at that time. He would wear them for some time and then give them away, usually. Some blankets he would wear for a long time. He wouldn't let the devotees change it. But the blue one he wore for a very long time. This one he didn't wear for a very long time. But that's one of the blankets. You often mention K.K. Shah. He replied to your letter when you first asked to visit Maharaji, and he taught us the arti, yes. Can you tell us about him and how he helped to bring this wonderful something? That it ends there, but I know what you mean. K.K. was an incredible being. He left the body some weeks after Ram Dass. He just did not want to be on the planet without Ram Dass here. They were very close. When Ram Dass first met Maharaji, K.K. was there and he translated for Ram Dass and Maharaji. And Maharaji asked K.K. to take Ram Dass home and feed him and take care of him and do seva for him, anything he needed. So they became very, very close, Ram Dass and K.K. And K.K. was so extraordinary. He was like a kid. And Maharaji had said to him, you're like a child and you'll always remain like a child. And it's true, he always remained like a child. And he was just a couple of years younger than Ram Dass, but he had very childlike quality. And he was very emotional too, very powerful, strong, loving emotions, very powerful bhavana. And he really loved the Westerners too. He really took care of us all and was so kind to us and his family and his cousin's family who owned the hotel we stayed in. Maharaji sent us there. They really opened up traditional India for us, the spiritual India. They opened that up and they taught us. Just by letting us hang out, we saw how the families worked and the relationships between the people in the families and how it was just, I can't imagine what my life would be like without KK. And in fact, as I told you, when I told Ram Dass that I was going to go to India and meet Maharaji and find Maharaji, he said, well, I can't tell you where he is. I'm not supposed to be talking about him. I said, that's okay. I'm going to go anyway. I'll find him. Maybe. But anyway, Ram Dass said, okay, wait. You talk to KK. Write to KK, my friend KK, and see what happens. So as I told the story, I wrote to KK, and I got a letter back after a few weeks saying that Maharaji was not in the hills at this time, but that he would be returning to his temple in Kenchi very soon. So now I had a name of a place that he goes to, which I didn't have before. And then he said, when Maharaji returned to his temple, KK would go and show him my letter and 2 other letters, Rameshwar Das and Jagannath Das, Dan Goleman, had also written. And so a few weeks later, I got a second letter from KK, and it said, Maharaji returned to the hills, and after some days I was able to go see him at Kenchi. And he said, as you know, great saints like Maharaji do not encourage the devotees to come to them, but their doors are always open to all and everyone. So if you're here in India, you can come and see him. Fantastic. That all I saw was a green light, go. Not exactly. Not exactly. Many years later, KK said to me, he said, did I ever tell you what really happened that day? I said, no. What? And he said, now you got to remember KK's relationship with Maharaji is key to this whole unfolding. KK was like a spoiled child. He had grown up in Maharaji's lap since the time he's 8 years old, and his relationship with Maharaji was like a kid with his grandfather. There's respect, but there's no distance, there's no formality. It's all love and, anyway, so. And also remember what I told you, that Ramdas, KK had been asked by Maharaji to serve Ramdas. So, KK told me that he went to the temple that day, and he went into the room where Maharaji was, and Maharaji was talking to some other people in the room. And he sat down on the floor in front of Maharaji's tucket bed, and he put the letters on the bed next to him, next to Maharaji, and he began to peel and cut an apple into small pieces and to feed it to Maharaji. Maharaji used to like those soft, delicious apples because he didn't have many teeth, so he used to be able to chew them and mush them up. So while Maharaji was eating the apple and talking to the other people in the room, he noticed the letters, and he said, "What are those? What's that?" And KK said, "They're letters from students of Ramdas. They want to come see you." Maharaji said, "No, tell them not to come. What do I have to do with this?" And he went back to his conversation. Now, KK began to pout. He was very upset because now here was Maharaji interfering, because KK felt by helping us, he was helping Ramdas. And so now Maharaji was interfering with the very seva that he gave KK to do in the first place, and KK wouldn't stand for that. So he stopped feeding the apple to Maharaji, and he begins to pout, and he really could pout. He was like a world-class pouter. You never saw anybody pout like KK. Like, it was unbelievable. And he wouldn't look up. He wouldn't look up. And he stopped feeding the apple to Maharaji. Maharaji looks at him and says, "What's wrong?" His nickname was Kailash. Kailash. "What's wrong, Kailash? What's wrong?" And KK said Maharaji would push his head up like this, and KK would look away. He wouldn't look at Maharaji. And then Maharaji would take his hand away, and KK would put his head back down like this. And this happened a few times. Finally, Maharaji says, "All right, tell them what you want. Tell them what you want." Now, if it had been another devotee, I would have gotten a letter back saying, "Thank you for your letter. Maharaji says not to come. Goodbye." And you and I would not be here today. But because it's KK, what did he write? He didn't lie. He wouldn't lie. But he said, as you know, great saints like Maharaji do not encourage the devotees to come to them, but their doors are always open. So that's how that happened. KK came to America many times over the years. He stayed with me, he stayed with other people. He came to Maui to visit with Ramdas and stayed there for quite a while. He was extraordinary, just extraordinary. Another question about Maharaji and Dada. Dada was another great devotee of Maharaji. Totally different personality than KK. Dada was a respected economics professor at Allahabad University. And he never sat in Maharaji's presence. Never. Always stood right behind Maharaji, right to the side, ready, looking only at Maharaji, mostly, ready for any instruction or anything Maharaji might need, anything he could do. He had a little rag over his shoulder. He wore dhoti and white kurta, and he had a black vest and this little shmata on his shoulder that if he needed to wipe Maharaji's hands, because Maharaj was always giving sweets out and his hands were all covered with sugar and everything, so he would wipe Maharaji's hands. He was totally attentive to Maharaji and considered everything to be Maharaji's will. There was a very great saint named Deoraha Baba living in that part of India at the time. And he was actually 270 years old. He's older. He was the elder guru brother of the other old Baba I talk about, the old yogi I sometimes talk about that I met. And I also had met Deoraha Baba a few times. And he was the he had been the guru to your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, and he lived in the same town, the same area for all those years. Everybody knew it. So, now Dada lived in Allahabad, and in a house that Maharaji basically had built for him and his family. And when Maharaji would come in the winter, he would leave the hills, he'd travel around. He used to make his winter camp, so to speak, at Dada's house for any number of weeks or sometimes months. And he would go out from there on short pilgrimages to different places. And Dada was usually had to remain at home. Not only was he working, still teaching, but Maharaji had always instructed him, Dada, you stay home. And so Dada didn't go many places except to Kenchi when Maharaji called him, or Brindavan. So Deoraha Baba, this other very great saint, came to Allahabad. And some of the Indian devotees who used to come see Maharaji, would come see Maharaji, also were devotees of Deoraha Baba. So one of them came to the house and said, Dada, you know, Deoraha Baba is here in town, you should come see him. And Dada said, no, I have to stay home. But the guy was so insistent, no matter how many times Dada said, no, I won't go, I'll stay here. He wouldn't take no for an answer. So Dada had to go. So he went into the room where Deoraha Baba was sitting, a big room, and he walks into the back of the room and he pranams like this, and then he leaves quickly and goes back home. As soon as he got home, 2 minutes after he got home, a car arrives, boom, Maharaji comes in the house, sits down and says, so Dada, what's going on? And he said, you went to see Deoraha Baba? Did you meet him? Did you speak to him? And Dada said, no. So why not, Dada? Why not? You know, I know him for so long. I know him very well. He knows me. He would have seen you. He would have spoken to you and blessed you. And Dada was just quiet, looking down, getting very emotional, but quiet. And Maharaji was, why Dada? Why Dada? Why didn't you go to him? Why didn't you speak to him? And Dada was like, not saying anything. Finally, he blurted out, I only have one head, and it's already been given. And Maharaji said, oh, Dada. He petted him, stroked his head, and said, oh, Dada, not everybody is a fool like you. You know, Dada used to say, when you're with him, when you're with Maharaji, it's wonderful, of course. But you're in a dream. You don't really know what's going on. You're running here and there. You're with Maharaji. So many things are happening, but it's all, you don't focus on anything. He said, when you're not with him, when you go back to your home, you can sit and replay the movie of everything that happened. You can see it again. You can focus on it. You can enjoy it in a different way. One time Dada was sitting out on the porch of his house smoking a cigarette. He used to smoke. And I was sitting out there with him. This is long after Maharaji had left the body. And I thought, well, I'm going to tune into Dada and see, I don't know why I even thought that, but I'm going to tune into him. So I sat there, and all of a sudden, scene after scene after scene of Maharaji started coming to my mind, going through like pictures. It was amazing. And this is where Dada was immersed in remembering Maharaji 24/7. It was so incredible. He talked about him, he told stories. It was so powerful to be with him. And Dada said, whatever Maharaji said, Dada said, "Ha Baba, yes Baba, yes Baba." Dada would say, "Dada, you have no brains, Dada. You have no brains." Dada would say, "Yes Baba, yes Baba, I have no brains." And Maharaji said, "I have plenty of brains. I have plenty of brains." Dada would say, "Yes Baba, you have plenty of brains. You have plenty of brains." Then Maharaji would say, "You have brains too, Dada. You have brains too." And Dada would say, yes Baba, I have brains too." He didn't, it was like, he was like gonzo the whole time. We used to love hanging out with him. I was living in the temple for the summer of '72, spring, summer, and fall, actually. And Dada was there for most of the summer. So me and Dwarkanath, Ravidas, and Balaram, we used to keep a pack of cigarettes, matches, and cups of tea ready in the room around midday, because at some point Maharaji would turn to Dada and he'd go, go take your 2 minutes, go smoke, have your cigarette, because with Maharaji all day he didn't get a chance to do anything. He couldn't smoke, he couldn't do anything. So Dada would come, he'd come into the room, he'd pick up the tea, he'd light his cigarette, he'd pick up the tea, he'd be drinking the tea and smoking the cigarette and telling us Maharaji stories. And it was like, like this. And then all of a sudden, he'd begin, you could almost see him like start to turn. And he began to put the cup down and he began to throw the cigarette down. And then we heard Maharaji, Dada, calling him from the front of the temple. But Dada had already heard him before we did. He heard him on the inside. The story of Dada, how Dada met Maharaji and his life with Maharaji. He wrote 2 very great books. One is called By His Grace, and the other is called The Near and the Dear. They're both on Kindle. I think they're hard to get paperback and stuff like that, but they're on Kindle. The Near and the Dear, and By His Grace, Dada Mukherjee is his name. Dada Mukherjee. You'll love them. They're really the inside life of a devotee, just incredible. Am I planning any live shows that will be at venues where a pass won't be required? No, I'm not at this time. Somebody's asking about buying a harmonium. Would I need a pitch shifter? I really suggest you do not get a harmonium with a pitch shifter, because they break right away. And there's so many moving parts in the pitch shifter. That's what changes the key. You can move it back. It moves the key, actually moves the keys back and forth. Do not get a pitch shifter. Definitely try not to get one, because it's just a pain in the ass and it'll break and you'll be screwed. There's nothing you can do. It's almost impossible to fix. How do you find the willingness to let go of grief? You're asking the wrong guy. I grieve everybody I ever known who'd passed, who'd left my life. I remember them, I miss them. The problem is that I feel their presence also. So even though I miss them and really have a lot of grief and sadness that I can't see them and speak to them and be with them, I feel them. I feel the love that was our connection. Not big universal love, but really the love of that person. And I really feel that person's presence very strongly. And so the grief and the presence of the person coexist to some degree. And as much as I can't push the grief away, also I can't push the fact that I really do feel like my dearest friends and teachers and elders and loved ones are right here with me. So maybe I'm crazy, but I don't particularly mind being that way. So one could begin to recognize that when you think of someone who is no longer present in the body, that's actually the connection to that person. And as the grief, the volume of the grief comes down a little bit over time, which it does, if you're not as cranky and as I am, you might let that presence and love come up to the surface more easily than I do. I'm very stubborn, and I'm angry at those people for leaving me, but what can I do? They didn't have a choice. They had to go when they had to go. But really, the truth is I do feel their presence, and that love is a balm for the heart that heals the heart of the terrible sting of missing somebody. But you can't push the grief away. There's no reason to. In some way, the grief is part of the connection. Although Maharaji, one time he was on the roof of the temple with Mr. Tiwari, my Indian father, and Maharaji started dancing in ecstasy. Dancing, like just going around like this. And he said, oh, so-and-so, this lady that served me, she's gone. She left the body. And he's like in ecstasy. And Tiwari looks at him and says, you butcher! She served you for so many years and now she dies and this is you're dancing in ecstasy? You're a butcher. That's the way they played. Maharaji turns to me and says, what? Should I act like one of the puppets, like you? So, puppets miss other puppets, but God is everybody already. So, what to do? What to do? You know, somebody's asking if I believe in karma and how do I understand it? Could I prove to you that that the laws of karma are real? No, I can't prove it to you. I can't prove it to myself. But being around this kind of these teachings for so many years, I truly cannot say that I don't believe in karma. I don't believe in the reality of the laws of karma, which are very simply, of course, cause and effect. That every effect, everything is the result of a cause, and that nothing can be here without a cause. Nothing can be anywhere without a cause. And that causes create effects, and then effects in turn become causes. So somebody hurts you, and you're angry and hurt, and that stays inside of you and causes you pain and suffering, and out of that pain and suffering you may lash out and hurt somebody else. Very simply, cause and effect. Why that person hurt you in the first place, it's complicated. It's a very complicated situation. But cause and effect and rebirth are linked. You really, as far as my limited understanding is, you really can't have one without the other. Everything in our lives right now, they say, is a result of our own karmas. Everyone in our lives is part of our karmic situation. And everything that happens to us has a cause. It doesn't happen by accident. That's a big thing. That's a big thing to bite and to digest, for sure. So don't worry about it. It's not required. All you have to do is be a good person. That's all. All these practices we do, they're simply to give us the strength and the peace of mind and the openness to become good human beings and treat other people well and treat ourselves well. Whether there's rebirth or karma or no karma, at this point, how does it affect us to think about it? All we know is that we want love, and we want to live in love, we want to be happy, we don't want to suffer, we don't want to have pain. So we have to do some practice, deal with whatever stuff arises with our practice, with the strength we get from our practice, and be a good human being. That's the main thing. And if you want to learn about karma, there are plenty of teachers out there who have, real training in that and a deep understanding of it. But very simply, if you go around causing horror and violence and acting out of anger and fear and selfishness, and if you're pushed around by shame and anxiety, what do you think is going to come from that? What kind of actions will come out of living in that atmosphere? And those actions created in that atmosphere will create more of that atmosphere. That mental atmosphere, that emotional atmosphere. So it's our job to find a way to not be pushed around by our own stuff. And that's what spiritual practice is for. That's what chanting is for. We're planting seeds within us that are deeper than the level of emotions and negative emotions and negative thoughts and stories. And that we're deepening that awareness of our own truth in our own hearts. And all that is deeper. Our true nature is deeper than that stuff. So the deeper we sit in ourselves, the less all that negativity has, the less power that has over us. And then our actions are more open and more relaxed and more loving and more kind. And then the atmosphere of our lives also changes, becomes more open, more livable, more possibilities. So, okay, that's it for today. We're going to have a chai and chat this Saturday, so if you're having a burning question that you really want to talk about, come to that. We'll be spending 2 hours floating in an ocean of bullshit. No, I'm just kidding. Enjoying. Okay. Going to sing Hanuman Chalisa. Maharaj said, Hanuman Chalisa can change fate. That's really, that's big time. I know he didn't lie. I can't explain it to you. I don't understand it. But he said, chanting the Hanuman Chalisa can change fate. So like if there's rocks down the river of our life somewhere, this practice can remove those rocks from our path. Shri Guru Charana Saroja Raja Nijamanu Mukuru Sudha Varano Raghubhara Vimala Jasu Chodhayaku Palachar Buddhihin Tanu Janke Sumeron Pavana Kuma Siaram Balabudhi Vidya Dehu Mohin Hardahu Kales Bika Siavara Ramachandra Padaje Sharanam. Hanuman Kyan Saga Jekapis Loka Puja Ramaduta Tulita Paladhama Anjani Putra Pavana Sutana Mahavir Vikram Bajrangi Matindewa Sumati Ke Sangi Kanchanavaran Viraj Subesa Kana Kundala Kunchita Kesa Ata Bajra Dvaja Viraje Kande Munja Chane Usaje Shankara Suvana Kesari Nandana Teja Pratapa Mahajagabandhana Vidyavan Guni Ati Chatu Ramakaja Karibe Ko Atu charit sunibe korasya Ram Lakhan Sita Manabasya Shmarupadhar Siya Indakava Vikatarupadhar Lanka Jarava Himarupadhare Asur Sanhare Ramachandra Ke Kaja Sanware Lai Sanjeevan Lakhana Jiyaye Shri Raghuveer Harashirulai Raghupati Kinhi Bahut Baraye Tumma Mama Priya Bharatai Samabhai Sahasabadan Maro Jasagaon Asakahi Shri Pati Kantalaga Sanakadika Brahmadi Munisa Narada Sharada Sahita Ahisa Yamakube Tigapala Jahante Kabhi Kobid Kahe Sakte Kahante Upakar Sugriva Hinkinha Rama Milaya Rajapadadina Tumaro Mantra Bibhishanaman Lankeshwara Aya Sabba Jagajan Yuga Sahasra Jojana Parabanu Ilyotahi Durapalajan Prabhu Mudrika Ele Mukamahi Chaladilangi Gayacharajanahi Duragama Jagata Kejete Sugama Anugrahatumare Ramaduvare, Tumarakovare, Hotana Agya, Dinu Pesare, Sabasukalahe, Tumhari Sharana, Tumarachaka Kahu Kodaran, Apana Teja, Samaro Ape, Tinon loka hanka tinkante Bhut pisasha nikat nahi aave Mahavir jab naam sunave Nase roga hare sab pira Japat nirantara hanumat bir Sankate Hanuman Shurave Manakrama Bachana Dhyan Jolave Sabapararam Tapasvi Raja Dinake Kaja Sakalat Masaja Paramanorat Joko Velave Soyamit Jivana Pallapave Charon Yuga Paratap Tumhara He Parasiddha Jagata Ujjaya Sadhu Santake Marakovare Asura Nikandana Ashta Siddhi No Nidhi Ke Data Asavaradina Janki Mata Rama Rasayana Tumare Pasa Saddaraho Raghupati Ke Dasa Tumare bhajan Rama ko pave janam janam ke dukha bisarave anta kala raghuvar pura jai jahan janma hare bhakta kahai और देवता चित्तनंदरहि अनुमत से सब सुख करे संकट कटे मिटे सब पीरा जो सुमेरे हनुमत बलबीर जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई कृपा करो गुरुदेव की नाय जो सत बार पाठ कर कोई छुत ही बंदी महासुख होय पर हनुमान चालीसा होया सिद्धि साकी गौरीसा तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा कीजे नाथ हृदय मंदिर पवन तनय संकट हरण मंगल मूर्ति रूप सिया राम लखन सीता सहित हृदय बसो सुरभूप सियावर रामचंद्र पद जय शरणम मंगलमूर्ति मारुतनंदन सकल अमंगल मूलनिकंदन मंगलमूर्ति मारुतनंदन सकल मंगल मूलनिकं श्री राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय राम बोलो Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Sita Ram Sita Ram Sita Ram Sita Ram Sitaram, Sitaram, Jai Jai, Sitaram, Sitaram. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Ram Lakshman Janaki Jai Bolo Hanuman Janaki Jai Bolo Hanuman Ki. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram. Ram Lakshman Janaki Jai Bolo Hanuman Ki. Ram Lakshman Janaki Jai Bolo Hanuman Ki. Ram Ram Jai Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Ram. Sitaram, Nitaram, Jai Sitaram, Nitaram, Taram, Jai Sitaram. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Ram. Shri Ram, 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 Jai Ram, Jai Ram. If we know anything about a path at all, if we understand that there might be a way to live in this world in a good way, with an open heart, without fear, it's only because of the great beings that have gone before us on this path. Out of their love, out of their kindness, they left some footprints for us to follow. So in the same way that they wish for us, we wish that all beings everywhere, all of us, be safe, be happy, that all of us have good health and enough to eat. And may we all live in peace and that ease of heart, with whatever comes to us in life. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste. Take good care. And until we meet again, as we say in India, vaya con Dios. Ram Ram.